The vast expanse of space remained quiet as Admiral Kang's fleet approached the Sol system. His 20 warships moved with perfect precision, their dark hulls gleaming against the backdrop of distant stars. The Galactic Imperium had conquered thousands of worlds over millennia, and this mission seemed no different. "Scan complete, Admiral," said Officer Song, her fingers dancing across the control panel. 9 planets orbit the star. The 3rd planet shows signs of civilization. "Admiral." Kang nodded, his tall frame rigid in the command chair. The bridge of the flagship Eternal Glory hummed with quiet efficiency as crew members worked at their stations. The ship's interior glowed with soft blue light, highlighting the advanced technology that made the Imperium the dominant force in the galaxy. "What level of development?" Kang asked. "Primitive by our standards," Song replied. "They achieved faster than light travel only 80 years ago. Their weapons and defenses appear basic." Kang allowed himself a small smile. This would be an easy conquest. The Imperium had a perfect record of integrating new species into their empire. Some fought back, others surrendered immediately. All eventually became loyal subjects. "Send the standard greeting message," Kang ordered. "Inform them of their imminent integration into the Imperium." The message was sent, a formal declaration that had been used for thousands of years. It explained in clear terms that resistance was futile, that the Imperium offered protection and advancement in exchange for loyalty and resources. "Message sent," Officer Song confirmed. "We should receive their surrender shortly." Minutes passed. The bridge crew waited in silence. "Admiral, we're receiving a response," Song finally announced, surprise evident in her voice. "Audio and visual." "Display it," Kang ordered. The main screen flickered to life. A human woman appeared, seated casually in what appeared to be a command center. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal decorations. Behind her, other humans worked at stations that looked strangely outdated compared to Imperium technology. "Hello there," the woman said with a relaxed smile. "I'm Captain Lee of the Earth Defense Force vessel Persistence. We received your interesting message." Admiral Kang frowned. This was not the fearful response he expected. "You understand your situation?" he asked. "The Imperium fleet is prepared to take control of your system." Captain Lee tilted her head slightly. "Yes, we gathered that from your message, very formal. But before you do anything hasty, perhaps we should talk. Our ships are approaching your position now." Kang's second-in-command, Commander Jin, looked up from his console with alarm. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple vessels moving toward us from behind the 4th planet. They were hidden from our scans." "Impossible," Kang snapped. "Their technology is too primitive for such deception." On the screen, Captain Lee smiled as if she had heard his comment. "We're full of surprises. Look to your starboard side." The bridge crew turned to the right side viewports. Outside, a fleet of human ships approached. They lacked the sleek design of Imperium vessels, instead appearing bulky and asymmetrical, with odd protrusions and seemingly random equipment attached to their hulls. "Those are their warships," Commander Jin whispered. "They look like they were assembled from spare parts." "Admiral Kang," Captain Lee continued, "I suggest a meeting between our leadership. Perhaps aboard our flagship? I promise safe passage." Kang's antennae twitched with irritation. The correct protocol was for the inferior species to come aboard the Imperium vessel and offer submission. This human was breaking all diplomatic norms. "Your suggestion is noted," he replied coldly. "However, proper procedure requires—" "Oh, I understand you have procedures," Lee interrupted. "But I think you'll find humans don't always follow expected patterns. It makes life more interesting." As if to demonstrate her point, several of the human vessels suddenly performed a series of complex maneuvers that should have been impossible for ships of their design. They moved with unexpected agility, forming a loose formation that somehow seemed both chaotic and deliberate. "Very well," Kang decided. "I will meet with you, if only to explain the inevitability of your integration." "Excellent," Captain Lee clapped her hands together. "We'll send coordinates for docking, and Admiral, you might want to bring your engineers. They'll find our technology amusing." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kang staring at the screen in confusion. In all his years serving the Imperium, no species had ever responded to first contact with such casual confidence. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered, "and inform our chief engineer he will accompany us." As Kang left the bridge, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would not follow the standard protocol. These humans seemed different. Their ships looked primitive yet performed advanced maneuvers. Their leader showed no fear despite being technologically outmatched. For the first time in his distinguished career, Admiral Kang felt uncertain about what would happen next. Admiral Kang's shuttle approached the human flagship with caution. The foe vessel called Persistence looked nothing like the elegant ships of the Imperium. Its hull was covered with various antennas, dishes, and what appeared to be makeshift repairs. Parts of it didn't even match in color. "This is how they represent themselves to a galactic power?" Engineer Han muttered beside him. "Their flagship looks like it was built from leftover parts." The shuttle docked with a solid thump that made the Imperium officers wince. Perfect docking procedures should be smooth and silent. Already these humans were showing their technological inferiority. A door slid open, revealing a simple airlock. Captain Lee stood waiting with two officers beside her. She smiled warmly. "Welcome aboard the Persistence, Admiral Kang." "I'm glad you decided to meet in person." Kang stepped forward with the perfect posture demanded by Imperium protocol. "Captain Lee, I am here to discuss the terms of your integration into the Galactic Imperium." Lee's smile didn't falter. "Of course. Follow me to our meeting room." The Imperium delegation followed her through corridors that seemed bizarrely designed. Some sections had exposed pipes and wiring that would never be visible on an Imperium vessel. Other areas showed signs of modifications and adaptations. "Your ship seems unfinished," Engineer Han commented. "We're always improving," replied one of Lee's officers, a man with a friendly face. "I'm Officer Park, Chief Engineer. This ship gets better every day." They entered what appeared to be a meeting room. It contained a simple round table with chairs around it. On an Imperium ship, such a diplomatic meeting would take place in a formal hall with proper ceremonial spaces. "Please sit," Lee gestured. "Would anyone like water or coffee?" Admiral Kang remained standing. "Captain Lee, I must insist we follow proper first contact protocol. The Imperium has procedures developed over thousands of years for these situations." Lee sat down casually. "We've reviewed your protocol transmission, Admiral. Very thorough. 27 steps leading to our complete surrender and integration. But humans prefer a more direct approach." "The protocol exists for a reason," Kang insisted. "It ensures peaceful transition and proper hierarchy." "Hierarchy," Lee repeated. "That's the issue, isn't it? You expect us to acknowledge your superiority." Immediately, Engineer Han stepped forward. "It is not expectation, it is reality. Your technology is centuries behind ours." Officer Park chuckled at this. "Is it? Have you actually examined our systems?" "I don't need to," Han replied confidently. "The external configuration of your vessels alone indicates primitive design philosophy." Park exchanged amused glances with Captain Lee. "Appearances can be deceiving." An alarm suddenly blared throughout the ship. One of Lee's officers checked. A small device. "Captain, 3 Imperium vessels have activated their scanning arrays. They're doing deep scans of our ships without authorization." Kang straightened. "Standard procedure. We must catalog all technology in soon-to-be Imperium territory." Lee's expression hardened slightly, though her voice remained calm. "We consider unauthorized scans an invasion of privacy, Admiral. You should tell your ships to stop immediately." "I will not," Kang replied. "The Imperium has the right to—" "Too late," Park interrupted, looking at his device. Defensive systems activated. On a large screen on the wall, they could see 3 Imperium cruisers suddenly go dark, their lights and propulsion systems failing simultaneously. "What have you done?" Kang demanded, his voice rising. "Nothing harmful," Lee assured him. "Just a localized electromagnetic pulse. Your ships will regain power in about 20 minutes, no permanent damage." Engineer Han looked shocked. "Impossible. Our vessels have shielding against such primitive attacks." "Apparently not against our version," Park said with a shrug. We've found some interesting ways to modulate the frequencies. Admiral Kang's face darkened with anger. This is an act of aggression. The protocol clearly states. The protocol also states that uninvited scans are considered rude, Lee interrupted, pointing to a specific paragraph on her device. Section 47B. We simply responded to your rudeness. Kang was speechless. No species had ever quoted the Imperium's own protocol back to them. How did you disable our ships? Engineer Han asked, professional curiosity overcoming his indignation. Park smiled. We call it the Hello Pulse. It introduces itself to your ship's computers in a way they can't ignore. This meeting is over, Kang declared. You will restore power to our vessels immediately. Already happening, Lee said calmly. But, Admiral, before you leave, know that we don't want conflict. We're happy to establish peaceful relations with the Imperium, just not as subjects. Kang moved toward the door. Captain Lee, you have violated multiple protocols today. The Imperium will respond accordingly. Lee nodded thoughtfully. I understand, but remember, Admiral, we've only shown you a small sample of what humans can do when pushed. As the Imperium delegation left the room, Engineer Han leaned close to Kang and whispered, Admiral, I believe we should study their technology more carefully before taking action. Something is not right here. Kang ignored the suggestion. His pride was wounded. These humans needed to learn respect. He would teach them the proper way to join the Imperium, through force if necessary. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, his face set in a hard expression. The time for talking was over. These humans needed to learn their place in the galaxy. All ships, Battle Formation Alpha, he commanded. Prepare weapons systems. Around him, his crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Imperium fleet shifted into a perfect arrowhead formation with the flagship at the center. Their sleek vessels gleamed in the light of the distant sun. Send the final warning, Kang ordered. Inform them they have one last chance to surrender before we take action. The message was sent. The response came almost immediately. Admiral, said Communications Officer Min, Captain Lee says, and I quote, if that's how you want to play it, let's dance. Kang's antennae twitched with irritation. Begin the attack. Standard pattern. The Imperium ships moved forward as one, their weapon systems powering up with a synchronized hum. The formation was flawless, a strategy that had conquered 1,000 worlds. On the bridge of the Persistence, Captain Lee watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. They're so predictable, she commented. Officer Park, are our ships in position? Park nodded, his fingers flying over his console. All vessels ready, Captain. Operation Confusion begins. On your mark. Execute, Lee ordered. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. Where the Imperium ships moved as one perfect unit, the human vessels broke into what appeared to be random patterns. Some accelerated rapidly, others cut their engines. Entirely. What are they doing? Commander Jin asked, staring at the tactical display on the Imperium flagship. Their formation makes no tactical sense. It doesn't matter, Admiral Kang replied confidently. Target their largest vessels first. The Imperium ships fired their weapons. Bright beams of energy cut through space and mostly missed their targets. The human ships moved in unpredictable ways, changing course at the last second or spinning on their axes. This is impossible, the weapons officer muttered. Their maneuvers defy standard evasion patterns. On the Persistence, Officer Park grinned. Phase 1 complete, Captain. Moving to Phase 2. Proceed. Lee nodded. Several human ships suddenly vented what appeared to be waste material from their engines. The clouds of particles spread across space, creating a hazy barrier. What is this? Admiral Kang demanded as the particles reached his fleet. Some kind of primitive smokescreen? Engineer Han, who had remained on the flagship, studied the readings with growing concern. It's affecting our sensors, Admiral. The particles contain elements that interfere with our scanning frequencies. Switch to secondary systems, Kang ordered. Already done, sir, replied the sensor officer. But they seem to be affected as well. In the confusion, 3 human ships slipped behind the Imperium formation. They released small objects that attached themselves to the hulls of the enemy vessels. Admiral Kang watched in disbelief as his flawless battle plan fell apart. "This is not warfare," he growled. "These are tricks." Meanwhile, the human ships continued their seemingly random movements. Some flew dangerously close to Imperium vessels, forcing them to alter course to avoid collisions. Others positioned themselves between Imperium ships, making it impossible to fire without risking friendly fire. "Captain," Park reported on the Persistence, "the Imperium flagship is attempting to re-establish control over their fleet." Lee tapped, her fingers on the arm of her chair. "Time for the finale, I think. Deploy the pulse satellites." Human ships released small objects that quickly spread throughout the battlefield. When activated, they emitted pulses that completed the disruption of the Imperium's highly networked battle systems. One by one, Imperium ships lost power or control. Their weapons went offline, propulsion systems failed, and communications dropped. "Admiral," Commander Jin said quietly, "half our fleet is disabled. The others report significant system failures." Kang stared at the tactical display in shock. His perfect fleet defeated without the humans firing a single traditional weapon. It was unthinkable. The communication system crackled to life. "Captain," Lee's face appeared on screen. "Admiral Kang," she said calmly, "I believe we should resume our discussion. Perhaps with a better understanding between us now." Kang's pride demanded he continue fighting, but his duty to the Imperium required him to prevent further losses. "Very well," he replied stiffly. "A temporary ceasefire." As the Imperium fleet drifted in disarray, Kang couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these strange humans might have waiting. The meeting room on the Persistence felt tense. Admiral Kang sat rigidly in his chair, his pride wounded, but his curiosity awakened. Beside him, Engineer Han couldn't keep his eyes from darting around the room, examining every visible piece of human technology. "I demand to know how you disabled our fleet," Kang said firmly. Captain Lee nodded. "That's fair. Officer Park will explain everything." Park stepped forward with a small device in his hand. "The simplest explanation is that we used your own systems against you." "Impossible," Han interrupted. "Our systems are perfectly designed and secure. That's the problem," Park replied. "They're too perfect, too standardized. Every ship identical, every system connected. Once we figured out how one works, we knew how all of them work." Kang frowned. "Are you suggesting the Imperium's technological uniformity is a weakness?" "In a way, yes," Captain Lee said. "You've optimized everything to such a degree that there's no room for variation or adaptation." Engineer Han looked offended. "Our designs represent thousands of years of perfecting technology. Every component serves its purpose with maximum efficiency." "Efficiency isn't everything," Park said. He placed his device on the table. "Take our ships, for example. You think they look messy and primitive, but every odd part serves a purpose." "Would like to see these purposes," Han said skeptically. Captain Lee smiled. "That's why we're here. We're offering you a full tour of our engine room and systems." Kang and Han exchanged surprised glances. No species would willingly reveal their technological secrets. "You would show us your ship's inner workings?" Kang asked suspiciously. "Of course," Lee replied. "We have nothing to hide, and honestly, I think your engineers will find it educational." The tour began immediately. Officer Park led them through corridors and down ladders into the heart of the Persistence. As they walked, Engineer Han grew increasingly confused by what he saw. "These pipes," he pointed, "they carry water?" "Liquid cooling system," Park confirmed. "Simple, effective, easy to repair with basic tools. But inefficient compared to our thermal regulation systems," Han argued. Park shrugged. "Maybe. But when your system fails, your entire ship overheats. When one of our pipes leaks, we patch it and keep going." They entered the main engine room. Unlike the clean, minimalist design of Imperium ships, the human engine room was a maze of equipment, with crew members working on various sections. "So disorganized," Kang commented. "Adaptable," Lee corrected. Every crew member knows how to repair multiple systems. Nothing is black-boxed. Engineer Han approached what appeared to be the main control panel. His eyes widened when he saw physical switches and buttons alongside digital interfaces. Oh, use manual controls in this era? Can't hack a switch, Park said simply. If all else fails, we can run critical systems manually. Han looked stunned. But the inefficiency of having humans manually operate systems. Inefficiency versus vulnerability, Lee explained. We prefer backup options over perfect optimization. They continued the tour, with Han growing increasingly fascinated. He examined the communication systems, which could switch between multiple technologies rather than relying on a single advanced method. You maintain older communication technologies alongside newer ones? He asked. Each has advantages in different situations, Park explained. Why limit ourselves? The weapons systems particularly interested Admiral Kang. He was surprised to find they were relatively standard, but their application was unique. Your weapons aren't particularly advanced, he noted. No, Lee agreed. But how we use them is. We don't rely on perfect targeting algorithms. Our crews train to improvise. By the end of the tour, Engineer Han was taking notes furiously on his device. His initial dismissiveness had transformed into intense curiosity. Your approach defies all established engineering principles, he told Park. You prioritize redundancy over efficiency, adaptability over optimization. Because space is dangerous, Park replied simply, and enemies are unpredictable. Back in the meeting room, Admiral Kang sat quietly, processing what he had seen. Finally, he spoke. Your technology is not inferior, he admitted. It is different. You solve the same problems we do, but with an entirely different philosophy. Captain Lee nodded. Humans have always been good at finding unusual solutions. We call it thinking outside the box. I must report this to Imperium. Command, Kang said. They need to understand that standardization has made us vulnerable. Magnetic mines? Commander Jin suggested. No, Engineer Han replied, his voice tight with worry. They appear to be some kind of transmitters. Suddenly, alarms blared across multiple Imperium ships. Their computer systems began acting erratically. Weapons powering down, shields fluctuating. They're broadcasting some kind of interference signal, Han explained, frantically working at his console. It's causing system conflicts in our network. The perfect coordination of the Imperium fleet collapsed as ships lost communication with each other. Some vessels fired at empty space, their targeting systems confused by false readings. Or, Lee suggested, we could work together. Combine your advanced technology with our adaptive approach. For the first time since entering the Sol system, Admiral Kang felt respect for these humans. Their ships might look strange, their methods unorthodox, but there was wisdom in their approach. I believe, he said slowly, that the Imperium has much to learn from Earth. Engineer Han nodded enthusiastically. The redundancy systems alone could revolutionize our fleet. And these cooling solutions, so simple yet effective. Captain Lee smiled. This is how alliances begin, not through conquest but through mutual respect and learning. The Grand Hall of the Imperium flagship Eternal Glory buzzed with unusual energy. For the first time in its history, the room was filled with both Imperium officers and humans. They gathered in small groups, talking animatedly and examining diagrams on various devices. In one corner, Officer Park demonstrated a simple repair technique to a group of Imperium engineers. He used a basic tool to fix a complex component. The aliens watched with fascination. You mean you can repair a quantum stabilizer with tape? Asked Engineer Han. Special tape? Park corrected with a grin. But yes, not permanently, but it works in emergencies. The Imperium engineers looked at each other. Then, to everyone's surprise, they began to laugh. It started as a small chuckle from Han, but spread quickly to the others. Across the room, Admiral Kang observed the scene with Captain Lee at his side. I have served the Imperium for 50 years, Kang said quietly. This is the first time I have heard our engineers laugh during a technical discussion. Lee smiled. Humans find humor in unexpected solutions. We call it jury-rigging or MacGyvering. When we fix complex problems with simple tools. It seems undignified, Kang admitted, yet I cannot argue with the results. The Admiral watched as another human engineer showed an Imperium technician how they had modified their ship's sensors to work in unusual conditions. The technician's eyes widened with each explanation. Your approach to technology is refreshing, Kang said after a moment. Where we seek perfection through complexity, you find effectiveness through simplicity. Different paths to the same destination, Lee replied. Neither is wrong. At the center of the room, a large table displayed a holographic model of a ship. It combined elements of both human and Imperium design. Engineers from both species gathered around it, suggesting modifications and improvements. Officer Yoon, a human weapons specialist, pointed to the propulsion system. If we combine your advanced materials with our redundancy approach, we could create engines that are both powerful and incredibly reliable. And if we apply your adaptive programming to our defense systems, added an Imperium officer, our shields could respond to attacks more effectively. The excitement in the room grew as more ideas were exchanged. The initial awkwardness between the species had melted away, replaced by shared enthusiasm for innovation. Admiral Kang turned to Captain Lee. I have sent my report to Imperium Command. I have recommended that humans be classified not as subjects but as allies. How did they respond? Lee asked. They were surprised, Kang admitted. The Imperium has not formed an alliance with a new species in over 300 years, but they have approved my recommendation. Lee's eyes widened. That's wonderful news. There is more, Kang continued. They wish to establish a joint engineering program. Selected human engineers will be invited to work with our best minds to develop new technologies. Across the room, Engineer Han was now sitting with Officer Park and several other humans. They were sketching designs on a tablet, occasionally breaking into laughter when someone suggested a particularly unusual solution. Your engineer Han seems to be adapting well, Lee observed. Too well, perhaps, Kang replied, with a hint of amusement. He has requested permission to study human engineering approaches in depth. I believe he used the term revolutionary several times in his request. A server approached with drinks. The liquid in the glasses glowed with a soft blue light. A traditional Imperium celebration beverage. A toast, Kang suggested, taking 2 glasses and offering one to Lee. To unexpected alliances. And to learning from our differences, Lee added. They clinked their glasses together. Around the room, others noticed and raised their own drinks. I must confess something, Captain, Kang said after taking a sip. When we first entered your system, I believed this would be a simple integration mission. I expected humans to be, like every other species we have encountered, either technologically impressive but predictable or primitive and easily conquered. Instead, you found us somewhere in between? No, Kang shook his head. I found you to be entirely unique. Your technology appears simple but contains hidden complexity. Your tactics seem chaotic but follow their own logic. You are refreshing. Officer. Park approached with Engineer Han. Both were smiling broadly. Captain, Admiral. Park nodded to each. We've designed something amazing. A hybrid power system that combines Imperium efficiency with human redundancy. It should never fail, Han added enthusiastically. Never. And if one part does fail, the system reconfigures itself automatically. Perhaps you would like to see the prototype? Park suggested. We could have it built within a week. As the 2 engineers launched into technical details, Admiral Kang found himself smiling. The Imperium had existed for thousands of years, conquering and absorbing countless civilizations. They had believed themselves to be the pinnacle of development. Yet here they were, learning new approaches from a species they had initially dismissed as primitive. The universe, it seemed, still had surprises to offer. And for the first time, in centuries, the halls of an Imperium flagship rang with genuine laughter, not of mockery but of joy and discovery. and the birth of true friendship between the stars.